Hare Krishna, dear devotees, my humble obeisances to you all. Now, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all so much for joining His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaja's daily class. Today, we are continuing with our Srimad Bhagavatam series of second canto, second chapter, The Lord in the Heart. And today's verse is number 8. Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for your time and association for all of us today. Even though you have a very busy schedule, thank you so much for your time, Maharaj. I'll share my screen again. Maharaj, we are not able to hear you.
Okay. Canto 2, Chapter 2, The Lord in the Heart, verse number 8. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Kechid Swadahatarn Hridavayaksakase Vadeshamatram Purusham Bushantam Chaturbujam Kancha Ratanga Sanka Gadadaram Dharanaya Smaranti. Translation. Others conceive of the personality of Godhead residing within the body in the region of the heart and measuring only 8 inches, with 4 hands carrying a lotus, a wheel of a chariot, a conch shell, and a club, respectively. Purport. The all-pervading personality of Godhead resides as Paramatma in the heart of each and every living entity. The measurement of the localized personality of Godhead is estimated to expand from the ring finger to the end of the thumb, more or less 8 inches. The form of the Lord described in this verse, with distribution of different symbols, beginning from the lower right hand up and down to the lower left hand, with lotus, wheel of chariot, conch shell, and club, respectively, is called Janardana, or the plenary portion of the Lord who controls the general mass. There are many other forms of the Lord with varied situations of the symbols of lotuses, conch shells, etc., and they are differently known as Purushottam, Achyuta, Narasimha, Trivikram, Rishikesh, Keshava, Madhava, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarshanam, Sridhar, Vasudeva, Damodara, Janardana, Narayana, Hari, Padmanabhya, Vamana, Masudana, Govinda, Krishna, Vishnumurti, Ahoksaja, and Upendra. These 24 forms of the localized personality of Godhead are worshipped in different parts of the planetary systems. In each system, there's an incarnation of the Lord having a different Vaikuntha planet in the spiritual sky, which is called Paravyoma. There are many other hundreds and scores of different forms of the Lord, and each and every one of them has a particular planet in the spiritual sky, of which this material sky is only a fragmental offshoot. The Lord exists as Purushottam, Purusha, or the male enjoyer, though there is no comparing him to any male form in the material world. But all such forms of Advaita, none different from one another, and each of them is eternally young. The young Lord with 4 hands is nicely decorated as described below. Umagyantimirandasya Gyanajana Salakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve. Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pastyatya Desatarine. Vanchakalpatarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktavrindam. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here's a description of super soul manifested in the heart. Prabhupada had one of his expert artists. Actually, it was okay. I just had her name. I forgot. I'll get it. Jadharani. She was one of the first female devotees who joined the Hare Krishna movement back in the 1960s. And Prabhupada commissioned her to draw a form of the Lord, and he described it as being 8 inches. And he described, as is mentioned here, the different symbols. These 4 symbols are in different positions in these different 24 manifestations. But the one in the heart is described as Janardana, and he has these symbols in, as it's described here, according to the different positions. So this super soul manifestation is the guide for the living entity. Super soul is there within the heart constantly, and we should understand he's constantly giving directions to the conditioned soul by which he can perform his devotional service and ultimately come back to him in devotional service. We cannot hear the super soul in the heart unless our minds are completely peaceful and free from any material desires. Then we may be able to tune in, because the Lord is speaking and he reveals his voice in the mind of the devotee. You can hear it. But for those who are beginning in devotional service, who have not reached that stage of super soul realization, then the spiritual master is the external manifestation of the super soul. Super soul is called, another name for super soul is Antaryami, which means one who dwells within. And so he is Guru within. Krishna takes the form of Guru within as the super soul, and Guru without as the spiritual master. Both of them are non-different from each other, and both of them are giving directions to the conditioned soul how they can progress towards the goal of life. And one can take guidance from the super soul externally in the form of the spiritual master. That is recommended. And then until one becomes fully peaceful and free from all desires for any, even a slight tinge of material happiness, they cannot hear the words of the super soul, who is constantly speaking to the Lord, to the conditioned souls, on how they can practice devotional service. He's also the intelligence. He also gives guidance on how to execute devotional service. He also acts in a sense of reminding the conditioned soul of what they're supposed to do next in devotional service according to the desire of the conditioned soul. So super soul plays a very prominent role in the elevation of the conditioned soul. And super soul is manifested in so many forms. And it says in the Bhagavad Gita, everywhere are his hands and face, his arms and legs. He hears and sees everything. So we know, at least to some degree, what is going on in our body and in our existence, to some degree, not completely. But the super soul, he knows everything in all times, all places, all persons, all situations. So that is the mercy manifestation. But he comes in the form of the guru to guide us externally with the same knowledge that Super Soul is giving us within the heart. So we say that there is a verse that describes that the spiritual master is the manifestation of the Super Soul externally to purify and guide the conditioned soul back to the spiritual world. But here you get in a little bit of description of the different manifestations of Super Soul in the spiritual world. These 24 are the prominent ones. There are unlimited planets in Vaikuntha. The world, it's called, the spiritual world is called Paravyoma. Vyoma means sky, and Para means spiritual or beyond the materials, the spiritual sky. That's the actual meaning of Paravyoma. And the planets there are innumerable, uncountable, unlimited. And each of the planet is ruled by a particular incarnation of the Lord as described here. And these are the 24 prominent ones. And these same 24 were spoken by Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami. It's listed in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila chapter 20. It's a very interesting, goes into the details, and there's actually diagrams showing the different configurations of how the super soul, not super soul, but how these different manifestations of the Vishnu forms of the Lord are manifested within the spiritual world. It's an interesting chapter. It's a chapter that devotees study and also make charts from that chapter also, describing the different categories of the super soul, the Vishnu manifestations. But now same Vishnu manifestations comes in the form of Janardana, one of the prominent ones out of all of them, who becomes the indwelling spiritual guide like that. So we need to take instructions and guidance both from internally and externally. And when one chances the holy name of the Lord, they purify their heart and they awaken their consciousness towards spiritual knowledge. And then that spiritual knowledge becomes more and more manifested as the devotee makes progress through the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. And the devotee knows everything according to the level of degree that they purify the heart. No, the devotee knows everything. He knows exactly who he is. He knows who the Lord is. He knows the relationship between him and the Lord. And he knows that relationship is eternal. He knows the process by which to connect to that relationship. And he also knows the goal of that connection, which is Prema Pumartha Mahan, to develop love for the Supreme Lord. So this is a nice description here. We can go on to the next verse. It says in the next verse, it's described the four hymns are nicely decorated, and there's some more information regarding this particular point. Prasanna Bhaktram Nalina Yaktekshanam Kadamba Kiljanka Pisanga Vasasam Lasam Maharatna Hiranmayan Gadam Spuram Maharatna Kirita Kundalam. This is the description. His mouth expresses his happiness. His eyes spread like the petals of a lotus, and his garments, yellowish like the saffron of a kadamba flower, are bedecked with valuable jewels. His ornaments are made of gold, set with jewels, and he wears a glowing headdress and earrings. So these descriptions are given as a form of meditation for the devotee. The devotee can meditate on the Lord, thinking of these different ornamentations and decorations of the Lord, and that becomes a meditation like that. And that's meditation on the supreme form of the Lord in the spiritual world. And all of these things are not some kind of ideas, some because of some author. These are actual realities. So valuable jewels, gold, earrings, and lotus petals, all of these things are actually initiated or originated in the spiritual world. What we have here is what is coming ultimately in the spirit from the spiritual world, but in a limited sense, in a less purified sense also. But gold, as you come in contact with the descriptions, especially in the 15th chapter of the third canto of the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll find a very detailed, elaborate description of Vaikuntha, which describes many of the things that were being described here in the second canto. So this gives us a vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And for the yogis, many of them, they meditate on these forms of the Lord as described in the scriptures. Okay, next verse. Unidrayit pankajang karing kalaye yogeshwarasta pita pada pallavam Sri Lakshanam Kustumba Ratnakardaram Amlana Lakshmya Vanamalaya Chitam. This is further description. His lotus feet are placed over the world of the lotus hearts of the great mystics. On his chest is the Kustumba jewel engraved with a beautiful calf, and there are other jewels on his shoulders. His complete torso is garlanded with fresh flowers. Purport. The ornaments, flowers, clothing, and all the other decorations on the transcendental body of the personality of Godhead are identical with the Lord, with the body of the Lord. None of them are made of material ingredients. Otherwise, there will be no chance of their decorating the body of the Lord. As such, in the Paravyoma, spiritual varieties are also distinguished from the material variegatedness. No further description of the ornamentation, decorations of the Lord. And here, his Kustubal gem, in there is an engraving of a beautiful calf. So this indicates how dear to the Supreme Lord the calves and the cows are. The Lord wears a jewel on his chest with a decoration of a calf. His spiritual world, at least the Goloka Dham, is called, Goloka, the planet of the cows. And of course, Krishna is called Govinda, Gopi, Govinda, Gopal. These are all names referred to Krishna, who is the transcendental cowhead boy. Of course, the cows in the spiritual world are Sarabi cows. They are not material, and they're unique. One can go to the Sarabi cow, and one can get anything they want from the Sarabi cow. They're also similar to the desire trees in the spiritual world. These cows can give unlimited milk and unlimited other varieties of beverages as requested by the inhabitants of the spiritual world. So Sarabi is the name of the spirit. Prabhupada liked that name very much. When we were in New Vrindavan, we had 4 cows. And we wrote Prabhupada to give us the names for the 4 cows. And he wrote back Sarabi 1, Sarabi 2, Sarabi 3, Sarabi 4. So it was interesting how the spiritual master, the perfect representative of the cowherd boy, who is also an internal associate of the Lord in the spiritual world, is very much inclined to cows, because cows are very special. Although they appear in this material world as animals, they're actually highly developed spiritual beings that have a particular role to purify the human culture and to set the standard for how one can live in this world and get everything they need. The cow can provide all the necessities of life for the human being in this world. So cows are very, unfortunately, in the civilization we live in, people have no regards for cows. And of course, the society kills cows, sends them to the slaughterhouses, and sells whatever they can for making some material profit. Because of that, the whole society is going to hell. This one sinful activity of slaughtering cows has such an horrendous material karma upon upon the world that everyone is undergoing tremendous suffering. And the results of cow killing is war. That's a direct correlation between killing cows and wars. So wars are actually results of killing cows. And that's mentioned not only by the scriptures, but also by great philanthropists who have come before and described how the connection between animal slaughter and wars are actually direct like that. But those who protect cows, care for cows, they derive great benefit in human culture and can live very nicely. The milk from the cows are actually very nutritious, and it's meant to help one develop finer brain tissues, and finer brain tissues are necessary for understanding spiritual philosophy. To understand spiritual philosophy takes a very intelligent mindset, and the brain tissues sometimes become corroded or covered by contaminations due to the association of the material energy. And these brain tissues become nourished and enlivened by drinking hot, not cold, but hot cow's milk. As Prabhupada said, if you drink it boiling hot, the milk goes right to the brain. You can even feel it when you drink it, and it nourishes the brain tissues. He says when it becomes cold, it doesn't have the same effect. So, like that. So again, cows give cow dung, cow manure, which we need grains, all of these things nourish or flourish the fields and bring about agriculture, which is the foundation for the human existence. Cow dung can also be used for heating. You can heat your home, you can cook with it. So the cow is multi-purpose, and there are certain cows that can channel higher energies. There's one cow called the gear cow. He has a big hump on his back. That hump connects to the demigods in the higher planets. And that cow is actually bringing in higher energy from the higher realms. So there, and of course, it says the cow is the embodiment of all of the demigods. All of the demigods reside within the body of Mother Cow. That's why she's called Mother, because she nourishes the children, which are the population of the. So here you see, just I did this little description here that there's an engraved beautiful calf on the chest of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He wears it as his ornament. Okay, so we're getting a little description of the Vaikuntha realm on what is the manifestations of the Lord's forms in the spiritual world. This is good. The devotees should study this, read about this, hear about this. It'll increase our devotion towards Krishna. And when we understand how variegated, as Prabhupada says here, spiritual variegatedness is there, but it's different from material variegatedness because it is made of what we say spiritual energy, which is an undeteriorating energy. It's not subjective to change. It's pure, it's elevated, and it's the governing force that makes up the entire spiritual world. Krishna's internal energy. Okay, so we'll stop there and open it up for some discussion.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Such a wonderful class. Thank you so much. Dear devotees, please turn on your cameras wherever you are, if possible. And please ask your questions or realizations, and you can raise your hand or type in the chat window. Thank you.
Mhm.
Krishna.
If devotees don't read, then you have no questions to ask. You have to read the books. If you read, you'll have questions and you'll also get realizations on the text that we're discussing. We have to read these books regularly. This is part of our spiritual growth, and it gives us the insight into the spiritual realm, and it also guides us in the practice of devotional service. If we don't read, we're actually missing out on a very big part of our spiritual development. And when you read, you inspire your intelligence. And when your intelligence is activated, then you can think in terms of spiritual understanding. And then you have questions and you get realizations. These things, both things come by reading regularly Srimad Bhagavatam and the other Vedic literatures given to us by the acharyas. But if we don't read, we don't know what to ask. We don't really understand everything when we hear the philosophy or the classes. So when you hear the class, you should get two experiences. If you don't get one or the other, either one, not both, or both, one is that you get questions. If you're actually listening in a very, what we say, absorbed way to what is being said, you will ask questions. And if you don't have any questions, that means everything that you heard, you realized it completely, and there's no question of asking questions. It becomes clear. So if these two things are not happening, that means you're not reading or you're not paying attention to the class. And that's coming from Padma Purana. So that's not me just saying that. That's the scriptures describe the results of transcendental hearing, transcendental knowledge. Questions, realizations, or both.
Jai. Thank you,
But
Maharaj. Thank you so much.
at least we can ask questions.
Yeah. Maharaj, while others are thinking, okay, Rishabhana Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, please accept our humble obeisances, Dandvat Pranams.
Haribo, Haribo.
And I fully agree that together with listening, hearing, and reading, one can develop this Krishna consciousness more deeply. The question I have is, the size of super soul, approximately 8 inches, I think, counting from the ring finger to thumb. In terms of the size of our heart, it doesn't seem to, I don't know how that super soul fits in. Or is there any way to elaborate that, Guru Maharaj?
The heart is a machine. It's an organ. It pumps blood. It's material. When we say, the Lord is in the heart, it means the Lord is on the heart.
Okay.
Heart is a seat. Just like you're sitting on the chair. So you're not in the chair, you're on the chair. So the Lord is on the heart. And next to the Lord is you, the soul. So there's two souls sitting on the heart. And that's why emotions are coming from that part of the body, because that's where the Lord and where the individual soul resides. The heart can't give emotions because it's just a machine that pumps blood. That's all it is. But because of its intimate connection, localized towards the spiritual energy. That's why these feelings of love are coming from the heart, but they're coming from the soul or the super soul that are situated on the heart. That's when they do heart transplants. They take one heart and move it from the other place to another. That same soul doesn't go from one body to another. It stays in the same body because the machine is changing, but the soul remains in the same place. The heart's a seat. That's all. That's Prabhupada has explained that in one discussion with Srup Damodar Goswami. It's a seat. That's all.
That is very helpful because I was under the impression the soul and super soul sit next to each other in the heart, but I think it makes sense that it's on the heart.
Yeah.
And a thought sorry.
It's very intimately connected with the heart. So when we say it's in the heart, on the heart, it's just pretty much the same thing.
And another point that I'd like to know, super soul gives directions, as you mentioned, but how do we stay in tune to receive the directions? Because if the mind and activities are there, we are buzzing, then we don't seem to listen to the super soul.
That's why the spiritual master is there. He's the external
Right.
manifestation of the super soul. We get guidance from the spiritual master. When we are purified of all material desires, and when the mind becomes completely peaceful, then you can hear Krishna in the heart. That's explained in Bhagavad Gita. And go to that verse, Srimati, 6th chapter, verse number 7.
Yes.
This 6th chapter describes the nature of the mind. 6, 7, very nice verse.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, go to the translation. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. So one who has conquered the mind, they obtain complete tranquility or peace, and the dualities of the material world appear to be the same to such a person. They see everything not according to the dualities, but according to that these are both manifestations of the material energy. And so in one sense, they're not different than each other. So unless we conquer the mind, what does it mean to conquer the mind? It means complete control over the mind. And in spiritual life, that means the mind is always being directed towards devotional activities. If the mind is diverted towards something material, then the mind is not conquered or not controlled. So just like when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we're meant to connect the mind with the sound vibration. So the sound vibration of the holy name is much more powerful than our mind. But our mind has such great control over us that the mind is taking us everywhere, even though we're chanting the holy name. But when we allow the holy name to conquer the mind, and that means when we carefully tune into the sound vibration of Krishna's holy name, then the mind gradually starts to, what we say, attain tranquility or peace. And then the chanting becomes clear and continuous. So that's a whole process, controlling the mind.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Maharaj.
Maharaj. That's helpful. A lot of hard work there, but it's helpful.
Yeah, it takes some work. But if you follow the guidance try to control the mind, then it becomes more and more natural and easier to control the mind.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.
The basis of controlling the mind is our morning sadhana. The strength of our morning sadhana is the foundation by which the mind becomes controlled and continues to act according to our direction and not to its own direction. The mind's very strong. And the Bhagavatam says the mind is not real, but it appears to be real because it is very strong. It's the conditioned mind.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you. So everything boils down to the sadhana, like whatever we do in our devotional service, the results, everything comes to the point of how good is sadhana.
Everything boils down to controlling the mind. Sadhana is the means by which we strengthen the mind and direct it in towards Krishna, devotional activity.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you. Brett Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to assembled devotees. Maharaj, just meditating on the opulence of Krishna and how artistically and tastefully dressed Krishna is and how he's adorned with all these ornaments. And we as devotees, we try to keep it simple, sadhu, but we see some devotees, they'll come and they're so beautifully dressed. They put so much effort into the way they look. They braid their shika, they're wearing their Shingadev pendants, the whole 9 yards, Maharaj. But I just wanted to gauge, what is your input on the matter? When I see devotees so beautifully dressed, I think, they're reminding me of their Shingadev, they're reminding me of this. But Prabhupada gives us that standard of to dress simply. So I just wanted to hear your input on that, Maharaj.
I don't see any contrary to being dressed nice and dressing simply. If you're trying to attract the opposite sex or you're trying to display yourself as a nice dresser, then the false ego jumps in there. But if you follow the standard dress, then if everything is neat and clean and nicely done, Prabhupada said, when someone sees that person, they think, oh, this person's coming from another world, spiritual world. The ladies wear their beautiful saris, keep their hair nice, and, it's not that they have to have a lot of makeup, but they should look very, not physically attractive, but neat and clean. There's a fine line between that. And for the men, tilak, kontimala, sika, shaven head, wearing your clothes, keep your clothes clean and neat, like that. That's very attractive, and it's also encouraged. Not that we're just vagabonds. We just dress the way we want, or just try to come up with some new styles like that. No. What Prabhupada gave us, he said, this is the residence of Vaikuntha, appear like this. So, but sometimes devotees, they think, oh, people will think I'm strange or I'm from, there's something wrong with me. So they don't want to dress like devotees. So they wear ordinary karmi clothes. For devotees who are initiated, they should always be in devotional dress.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Very nice. Yeah.
Thank you. So I see Sakshi Mataji and Amritana Mataji together. You can unmute and ask a question, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances of glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, Guru Maharaj, my question is about offbeat chanting. When we complete our 16 rounds, then, well, we are on the entire day, we are chanting offbeats. How should, because at that time, other noises are there around us. Then how do we meditate at the holy name that time?
That's easy. It's not the other noises that doesn't distract us. It's just when we get into conversations with other people, then we stop thinking of the holy name. When we start to interact with others, the noises around us don't bother us. In fact, their impetus is for us to continue to chant. The more the noises around, the more you start trying to counteract those noises by chanting in your mind, or chanting softly, or just chanting. It's not the noises that are the disturbance. It's just that when we have to interact with others, we start talking about other things, doing other things, getting our personal things together, getting our spiritual things together. And then we're not chanting anymore. We're doing other things. Those that are okay if they're spiritual activities, that's fine. But a devotee who is really attached to the whole process of devotional service will take every opportunity to chant. They chant in their mind, they chant softly, they chant always. And for those who are really advanced, the chanting goes on within the heart, inside, and there's no external movements. One cannot see that. One time Prabhupada was asked, "Are you always chanting?" And Prabhupada said, "Come." And he said, "You put your ear on my back." So the man went behind and put their ear on Prabhupada's back, and they could hear the Maha Mantra going on inside of Prabhupada. When you go to kirtan, and the kirtan is really takes you in, when you're done, that sound just stays with you. And when you go to sleep at night, it's still there. And when you wake up the next morning, it's still there. Yeah. That's Krishna consciousness, staying connected with transcendental sound. Just on a practical level, we should always be connected with transcendental sound at all times, 24 hours a day. When we're taking prasadam, we can be listening to classes. When you're in your house doing your chores, whatever else you do, you can turn on the kirtan, you can turn on a lecture. That way you're connected to the spiritual energy, and the mind's becoming purified.
So, Guru Maharaj, associating with the transcendental sounds, other than like holy names, like kirtan is going on, bhajans is going on, lectures is going on around us when we are doing our other chores. So that is the same as we chant holy name?
Well, Prabhupada, you'd have to chant your prescribed duties, as prescribed rounds, but whatever else you're doing, that's also chanting. Prabhupada said 16 rounds on the beads, innumerable rounds off the beads. That's a statement by His Divine Grace. In other words, satatam kirtayanto man, chant always. And then there's no problem. The only problem, the idea is to be able to chant while you're sleeping. because when you're sleeping, you go into another realm of existence, and sometimes the mind starts running all over the universe, collecting ideas or experiences. And that's when things get dangerous. Sleep is the worst thing in the world because it takes your conscious awareness away from Krishna, and you go into this state of ignorance. Sleep and ignorance is synonymous.
So Guru Maharaj,
But
that brings me to another question. How do we not sleep in ignorance?
well, before you take rest every night, you should end with something spiritual. Read Krishna book, or chant some rounds, or don't read difficult philosophical teachings before you go to sleep. It's not recommended. Krishna's pastimes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, like that. Be careful what you eat before you sleep. That will also disturb sleep and make the mind more restless. Sleep, Prabhupada said, out of the 4 bodily activities, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, he said the worst is oversleeping. That's a statement by Prabhupada. Out of the 4. That's why the Goswamis of Vrindavan, they hardly ever slept. They slept maybe 1-2 hours a day because they were absorbed in spiritual activities. They didn't even think of sleeping. But sleeping is connected with eating. If you regulate your eating properly, then you can regulate your sleeping properly. Without regulating your eating, you cannot regulate your sleeping. They're directly connected. That's from Shastra.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, I have experienced that. So after I started practicing more seriously, I realized that eating early in the evening, like 6 o'clock dinner time, is good. Then if you eat late dinners, then it interferes in your chanting in the morning. So that's just the realization I have.
And you can't digest when you're sleeping. Your digestion slows down. And then the food is sitting there, and your body is still trying to digest while you're trying to rest at the same time. And therefore, when you wake up, you're still tired.
Right.
I want to give a class, 2 classes on health, maybe in some upcoming sessions we can, because how to manage our health, and which is some of the etiquette we need in order to practice Krishna consciousness properly. I think it's also devotees are not aware of that, and should be. There are some essential things that are very much conducive to our spiritual development, and there's things that we should very carefully avoid, like that. Not only eating late, but what you eat also can disturb the mind.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, thank you very much. I have been experiencing all these things. So, and yes, I'm still in the process of controlling my ahar. So yes, thank you very much. And your class will again help me more.
Yeah, I want to do this class, the 2 classes. One about, from the health perspective, what we can do to increase our health and at the same time increase the quality of our Krishna consciousness through proper managing of health and activity. And then the other class would be what to avoid, what we have to strictly avoid, because it will take away both from health and from spiritual practice.
I think Guru Maharaj, you recommended me one book called Bhaktya Loka. It has that things, right?
Bhakti
by
Aloka,
Yeah.
there's some elements of that in there, but Prahladananda Maharaj has done a book called I Hope This Meets You in the Best of Health, where he includes 300 statements by Srila Prabhupada on health. Prabhupada spoke a lot on health, a lot. I mean, there's things you would selectively choose things that you could, adopt because it's quite vast. So it's very important because health, they say if you lose your money, you lose nothing. If you lose your health, you lose something. And if you lose Krishna, everything's gone.
Yes. Good. Thank you. No chance without Krishna. Thank you.
Mataji's enjoy the festival. Thank you. Silpesh, Prabhu,
Very
please.
much. I'm missing you all. It's a wonderful place.
Yes, Mataji.
Come to the temple tonight. We're going to do kirtan this evening.
Yes, so much. Yes, so much.
Silpesh, Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol. When you talk about the heart, I know we can also, that refers to the mind as well. And you're saying the heart is a seat of all emotions. And we can experience very, very pleasant emotions at times, especially when we're with devotees. But then the mind can, just one thought can completely throw you. And all these unpleasant emotions can come up. And you're just like, carried along with them. So I'm just trying to understand more about why is emotions often referred to as like being in the seat of a mind or the heart? And how do we work with this more?
Well, these emotions and their impressions also from previous lives. The mind contains both the waking and the unwaking aspect of its existence. Or we might say the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is larger than the conscious mind. And in the unconscious mind are all our experiences from all of our births since we came to the material world. And sometimes in certain situations, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in situations, these other impressions or ideas, emotions will surface into the conscious level of the mind. And one will wonder, where did that come from? And also we have to be careful what we put our attention on in our waking part of our day, because these things will develop impressions. And then, just like, I'll give you an example. This is a very straight, gross example. Some person might, he's a brahmachari, but he still has sex desire. And his sex desire is there. But he's a brahmachari, so he's not giving into it. He's controlling it. But because the desire is still there, when they go into the unconscious level of sleep, the sex desire will manifest in dreams. So that means the subtle part of the body still needs to be purified from the gross activity. The person may have stopped the gross activities, but the subtle manifestations are still there. Just like when you cut a root from the ground, if you cut it at the level of the ground, the root of that plant is still there and will grow back. But when you pull the plant out by the root, then it can't grow back anymore. So the impressions that we have in our minds are coming from this life, from previous lives. These are experiences, feelings, due to the association with the external energy or even the spiritual energy. The mind is very, what we say, it becomes an imprint for what it experiences. Just like if you have somebody writes you one of your good friends writes you a letter and he's just criticizing you. And all of a sudden your mind is so disturbed. You can't get it out of your mind. You're trying to chant, you're trying to do other things. And this experience of hearing the words from a good friend that are not very pleasant are causing you great disturbances. That's the mind. So in that 6th chapter, Krishna gives many statements on how to deal with the mind. What are the activities of the mind, how to deal with the mind. And the Bhagavatam's full of, especially the end of the 5th chapter of the 5th canto and the beginning of the 6th chapter in the 5th canto, especially the beginning of the 6th chapter, verses 2, 3, 4, and 5. Go ahead. It's worth going there, Srimati. Go to Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 6, verse number 2. I think it starts on 3, but let's try 2 first. I mean, and someone can read these verses. I mean, these just tell you what the mind is like.
Should I share the translations?
Yeah, just go into the translations.
Yeah. 5th canto, 6th.
Yeah, let's see. Read number 2.
Yeah, Srila Sukadeva Goswami replied, "My dear king, you have spoken correctly. However, after capturing animals, a cunning hunter does not put faith in them, for they might run away. Similarly, those who are advanced in spiritual life do not put faith in the mind. Indeed, they always remain vigilant and watch the mind's action." Text 3. All the learned scholars have given their opinion. The mind is by nature very restless, and one should not make friends with it. If we place full confidence in the mind, it may cheat us at any moment. Even Lord Shiva became agitated upon seeing the Mohini form of Lord Krishna, and Saubhari Muni also fell down from the mature stage of yogic perfection. Text 4. An unchaste woman is very easily carried away by paramours, and it sometimes happens that her husband is violently killed by her paramours. If the yogi gives his mind a chance and does not restrain it, his mind will give facility to enemies like lust, anger, and greed, and they will doubtlessly kill the yogi. The mind is the root cause of lust, anger, pride, greed, lamentation, illusion, and fear. Combined, these constitute bondage to fruitive activity. What learned man would put faith in the mind?
Yeah, these are all statements by Rishabdev, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not just some philosopher. This is God speaking. Okay, you read these verses from 2 to 5 every day. And Prabhupada has given lectures from 3 to 5. And you can hear those. He's not only giving the purports from these verses in the text, but he's also gave lectures on these verses also, which are additional explanations of these verses. One should study the mind. One should be careful not to allow the mind to go where it shouldn't go.
So, Guru Maharaj, when we talk about getting to the roots, that you're saying it could be from previous lifetimes, is our chanting the most beneficial thing we can do then to help us?
Chaito Darpana Marjanam. By chanting the holy name, one purifies the mind. Chaita means mind. Darpanam means to cleanse. And Marjanam means mirror. Cleanse the mirror of the mind through the chanting of the holy name. It's the first statement that Lord Chaitanya gives for purifying the soul. Okay, Srimati, there's a nice verse. Also go to 5th canto, chapter 11, and it's the last verse in the chapter, verse number 17. 5:11:17. This is worth hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
And bring up the text because the purport is really powerful.
Shall I go to the translation?
Carefully understand, carefully listen to this translation.
This uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of the living entity. If one neglects it or gives it a chance, it will grow more and more powerful and will become victorious. Although it is not factual, it is very strong. It covers the constitutional position of the soul. O King, please try to conquer this mind by the weapon of service to the lotus feet of the spiritual master and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Do this with great care.
Purport.
There is one easy weapon with which the mind can be conquered: neglect. The mind is always telling us to do this or that. Therefore, we should be very expert in disobeying the mind's orders. Gradually, the mind should be trained to obey the orders of the soul. It is not that one should obey the orders of the mind. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura used to say that to control the mind, one should beat it with shoes many times just after awakening and again before going to sleep. In this way, one can control the mind. This is the instruction of all the Shastras. If one does not do so, one is doomed to follow the dictations of the mind. Another bona fide process is to abide strictly by the orders of the spiritual master and engage in the Lord's service. Then the mind will be automatically controlled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed Srila Rupa Goswami, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva, Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bija. When one receives the seed of devotional service by the mercy of the Guru and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one's real life begins. If one abides by the orders of the spiritual master, by the grace of Krishna, he is freed from service to the mind.
That's a very complete description on the nature of the mind and how to control it.
Thank you, Maharaj. Such a wonderful verse. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Maharaj, we are exactly at the 1 hour mark. We have few questions still. Do you want to take? Yeah. Manisha Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And thank you so much for such a wonderful lecture, Maharaj. Maharaj, I have Srila Prabhupada deities in my house. When I first joined this Krishna conscious movement, that time I have only Srila Prabhupada deities and Bhagavad Gita. So my question is that, Maharaj, when I do chanting, hearing, reading properly, then I saw Srila Prabhupada is smiling. But when I do something wrong, like I don't do my duties properly, then I see Prabhupada is not smiling. So this is my mind plays with me or something. What is that?
Prabhupada's there.
Yeah.
He's there. You might think he's a deity, but he's also there in the form of a deity.
Yes, Maharaj, even I see that many devotees talk like this, like when they have deities at home, they say that today they are smiling, today they are not smiling, they are happy. So is that our mind speaking or really it happens? I always get confused. Yeah. Thank you, Mataji.
That's mercy. That's special mercy.
Yeah. Teja Prabhu, please go ahead.
Maharaj, I have one other question.
Yeah, sure.
Maharaj, in the last purport that Mataji read, in this purport, one point is that how beat mind with shoes. So how can we beat our mind with shoes? Can you please explain?
You take the pair of shoes, when you get up in the morning, just smash your head with the shoes. And while you're smashing it, just chant. And then the mind will say, hey, what are you doing? And I'm putting you under control. That's what I'm doing. Because the mind is the most restless, either in the morning when you get up or in the evening when it's late, just before you take rest. These are the two times when the mind is the most restless. Prabhupada said, I carry a pair of shoes with me. Anybody wants mercy? So come, I have a pair of shoes. If you can't do it, I can do it for you.
Surely, Maharaj, I will come tomorrow.
Okay. We consider this very important part of our purification. Mind's a rascal. You can't give him any allowance. You give him 1 inch, he'll take 5. If you give him 5, he'll take 20.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Teja Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna to all the Vaishnavas. Maharaj, here I have a question. In the purport, it was said that it is not factual. Mind is not factual. What is mean by that? I couldn't understand that. That's my first question.
The soul also have body, and that spiritual body also has a mind. So the material body and material minds are coverings over the soul. So that means what we developed in our association with the material energy makes up the ingredients of the mind, which is a shadow covering or reflection over the real mind, the spiritual mind. When we purify the material mind, we're dissolving the material mind, and then the spiritual mind is becoming revealed or becoming prominent. But right now, our material mind is prominent because of our association with the material energy. So it's not factual because it comes and goes according to our association with material energy.
Okay. So you mean to say that it's temporary and
yeah. Okay. It's temporary. It's a covering.
Okay. And
you have your body. You have your body, but you have your clothes. Your clothes are your coverings for the body. Well, you're not the clothes. You're the body is different from clothes. So the material mind is different from the spiritual mind. It's just a covering over the spiritual mind. But it's strong because of its association with material desires. As that last verse in that series of verses we read, lust, anger, greed, avarice make up the nature of the conditioned mind. The mind is always making plans for the senses to enjoy. Beware of that. The mind is always making plans for the senses to enjoy. So we have to divert that desire towards Krishna, towards spiritual activities. Then you make plans to serve Krishna. You perform activities that are spiritual. the material mind is not real. It's just a cover.
Maharaj, my second question is here
that
in the
make-
purport.
Did you acknowledge? Did you understand what I said?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes.
It's a very subtle point that I'm making, but if you think about it, you can understand that the activities of the mind, material mind, or the mind that's connected with the material energy, is simply a compound of all of our association with the material energy. The more we've compounded that mind, the stronger that mind becomes. As we practice Krishna consciousness, the effects of the material mind diminish. And when we become purified, the material mind is fully destroyed. It's gone.
Yes, Maharaj. So I just want to summarize, like Maharaj, material, like factual, when we are discussing about that, material mind is like a temporary one, and currently since we are associating with material mind, so that is prominent. And when we are following all the instructions, of the guru and shastras, slowly, we are spiritualizing it, and we'll be dismantling the material mind. Is that correct, Maharaj?
Yeah. Yeah. Gradually. But it's very strong, and it's been with us since we came to the material world. It's not we just got a material mind in this birth. No, we have the same material mind. It's the mind that carries you to the next birth. When you just take a look at who you are and what you are, this isn't a reflection of your mind. The mind is what we say, the image of our material desires. And when we leave the body, if we have a material desire and the consciousness at the time of death, the mind now will take you, the soul, to your next destination, and you take birth again accordingly with a particular karma daivana trena. The material energy takes charge at that point and moves you, the soul, along with your mind, which is the directing feature, towards the next body. And then you get a body that's different from your previous birth, but similar in desire. And then life after life, we keep changing the quality of our material desires, and we get different types of body. So we're attached to women, we get a woman's body in the next life. If a woman's attached to a man, she gets a man's body in the next life.
Maharaj, I have one more question. In the purport itself, it was said that we should not make friend with the mind. And I also heard some statements where it is said that we should make friend with the mind. So it is it's like contrast for me. Can you explain what is the difference?
That was explained in the purport that was just read by Srimati. Direct the mind towards spiritual activities, and then the mind becomes friend. Go to Srimati, go to chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 5. 6:5. This answers your question directly.
Yes, Maharaj. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can read it.
One
I
was
like
Delhi
it.
Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
but go back to the Sanskrit. The Sanskrit is really nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, yes.
Udare atmanam natmanam avasarayat atmaiva atmanam bandhur atma ripu atmanam. Okay, Chekra, go ahead, read that.
Sure.
Teja Prabhu, please.
One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well.
Yeah. So you
But-
make your mind a friend. That's all. Your mind right now, when it takes you away from Krishna, is an enemy. When it brings you to Krishna, it's becoming your friend. That's all. The mind is both friend and enemy. Make your enemy your friend. And then the explanation is there in the purport. But go to the next verse, 6:6. This is a powerful verse. Bandhur atmanas tasyat yenatmanaiva jitan atmanas tu shatru ve varte tadmaiva shatru vat. So here's the answer to your question.
Please read.
Go ahead,
Prabhu.
read. Yeah, read it.
For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy.
Not just enemy, greatest enemy. So your friend and your enemy are sitting right next to you. Your best friend and your greatest enemy is there. So make your mind a friend by connecting it, elevate it towards spiritual life. Then it becomes a friend. If you fail to do that, the mind will take you all over the universe into places you don't want to go.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
You have to deal. So the whole process of bhakti yoga is to control the mind and direct the mind towards Krishna. That's the essence.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Maharaj. So, Maharaj, we have two questions on chat. By Raghupati Prabhu, he is asking, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all to Srila Prabhupada. Could you please share any practical tips you may use to help us control the mind when chanting japa?
Yeah, just beat it with shoes. That's as practical as you can get. When you wake up in the morning, immediately pay your obeisances to your spiritual master and begin chanting, or begin chanting the glories of the Lord. Don't allow your mind to, go to the cell phone to see who's, who overnight while you were sleeping sent you some messages, or do anything else. And then while you're getting yourself ready, getting yourself clean, connect with sound vibration. And then when you're all ready, then you can sit down and your mind's ready to chant nicely. Don't give that mind even an inch. If you give it an inch, it'll take a yard. The mind likes to associate with something. So if soon as you get a thought in your mind, that thought will associate with some other thought. And pretty soon you'll go down the road of thoughts, and pretty soon you're so far away from the original thought, you wonder, how did I get here? This is the guy you got to deal with. He's the enemy. Make him your friend. Meditate on the spiritual master's instructions. That will help also. Chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Don't listen to the mind. Says if you one way to easily control the mind is neglect. Tells you, it's always telling you what to do. Like right now, some of you are listening to the class and your mind's telling you, well, I got to do this. When the class is over, I'm going to be doing this. And I can't wait till the class is over because I got to get to these things right away. or or some thoughts that are not related to the process of hearing.
Yes, Maharaj.
I've given at least 5 or 6 seminars on the mind. And if you like, I could give another seminar on the mind. It's one of my favorite topics because it is one of the most important topics for execution of devotional service.
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah. How many times we hear this concept of controlling mind? We still struggle with the controlling of mind and always listen to the mind.
You see, we have some material desires. We're controlling the mind, and all of a sudden, Maya presents that material desire right in front of you.
Mm.
And then because you're attracted to that, your mind goes for that.
Thank you, Maharaj. So Dheeraj Prabhu has a question on chat. He's asking, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, how attachment to deities worship works on our spiritual life and material life?
Say that again. I was reading what Raghupati just posted.
Okay. How attachment to deities worship works on our spiritual life and material life?
Yeah, attachment to the deity. Deity is the form of the Lord. Becoming attached to the Lord, that's good. That's building your spiritual consciousness. It's directing the mind in the right place. Yeah.
Thank you much. Revati Mataji, you have a question?
Okay, I think we'll make this one the last question.
Yes, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Revati.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Our glory Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, I just want to ask about uncontrolled mind is also due to offenses. Sometimes is it related to offenses? If you do any offenses, your mind will get disturbed.
What is you're saying? First the offense, and then the reaction, or first the disturbance and then the offense? Which one are you saying?
So my question is, I would like to know, mind, it's uncontrolled mind is also due to unknowingly if we commit any offense. We don't know it's an offense, but sometimes we engage in offenses that also causes the mind to get disturbed and
Yeah, well, you're giving two questions in one statement, but I'll answer the first part. Yeah, when the mind is uncontrolled, it can commit offenses unknowingly. Yeah, that's understandable. Your mind is controlled. Control means directed towards Krishna, and you won't commit offenses. And if you commit offenses, then it will be harder to control the mind after that also.
so it's both way, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah. To control the mind, and that that is the way to avoid disturbed mind. And I mean, it's not easy to control the mind. Very difficult. But if you practice, you can do it. Go to 6th chapter again, Bhagavad Gita, verse number 34, I think it is.
Yes, Maharaj. One second.
And 35 is also, 34 is, I think, Arjuna's question, and 35 is Krishna's answer.
Yes, Maharaj.
This is very important, these two verses here. The whole 6th chapter is actually, yeah. Chanchalahi mana Krishna pramati balavadridha tasyaham nigranam manye vayaridam saduskaram. Someone read?
The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. And to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind.
You can read a little bit of the purport.
Yeah. The mind is so strong and obstinate that it sometimes overcomes the intelligence, although the mind is supposed to be subservient to the intelligence. For a man in the practical world who has to fight so many opposing elements, it is certainly very difficult to control the mind. Artificially, one may establish a mental equilibrium toward both friend and enemy, but ultimately no worldly man can do so, for this is more difficult than controlling the raging wind.
Okay, go on to the next verse now. So you get a little idea how difficult it is. Now Krishna gives the answer. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamsayam Mahabaho Mano Durni Griham Chalam Abhyasena Tu Konteya Vairagena Chagriyate. Now listen to Krishna's answer.
Lord Sri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment.
So he gives the answer: suitable practice, Krishna consciousness, detaching oneself from material activities. You can read a little bit of that one also.
Yes, Maharaj. The difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, as expressed by Arjuna, is accepted by the personality of Godhead. But at the same time, he suggests that by practice and detachment, it is possible. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the super soul, restraining the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. By the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of such devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna. This is a very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn Vairagya. Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in the spirit. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to the activities of Krishna. This is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called Pareshanubhava, spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. Similarly, by discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objectives. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind, and eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness.
Okay, there you go. You want any more? And this is the whole thing right here. The mind is, it's restless, but you can control it by constant practice. That means engaging in devotional service, and detachment by giving up material desires, material activities. So it's a process. And hearing is the recommended way by which one can control and purify the mind, hearing about Krishna like that.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Right there, everything's there in that purport.
Right now, like I'm experiencing constant switch, material and spiritual, but yeah, it's a process. Yeah, continuous hearing of your nectar will gradually help us.
If you want immediate results, you might be disappointed. So sometimes it takes a whole lifetime to actually get to the point of the mind being fully controlled. It's not easy, but it's possible. But the process is hearing about Krishna, chanting about Krishna, serving Krishna, based on what we hear about Krishna. Formula is very simple in explanation, but very powerful in application.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes, Maharaj, thank you so much. We'll end the call here. It's 1.5 hours. Okay.
Now, when we leave here, what are you going to do with your mind? Where are you going to bring it? Think about when we're all off the air now, where's my mind going to take me now? Okay, something to think.
And chanting and little deity service, Maharaj, for me. And one more Srimad Bhagavatam class.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Srimati.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much. Such a wonderful class and nice question answer session. Thank you, dear devotees, for participating. We'll end the call here today. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj ki jai. Thank you so much, everyone. Hare Krishna. See you all tomorrow. Can I know your schedule from tomorrow? I know you are busy in the festival there in Ujjain.
Yeah, tomorrow, most likely, I won't be available.
Okay, Maharaj.
Okay, thank you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.